Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Hannah Wilcox. I'm the Head of Customer Experience at Conversity. Today we're going to be talking about understanding customer motivations to drive e-commerce strategy, and specifically how Life Extension Europe have been creating richer data to drive their customer growth and their business strategy. So we're really pleased that Life Extension Europe are here with us today. We've been working with them for around 8 months now, since we worked with them on an intelligent guided selling tool on their website. It's a really exciting partnership. Life Extension Europe are at the forefront of really using data in this way. So just by way of a brief introduction of what we'll be covering today, the topics we'll be covering are Life Extension Europe's e-commerce journey and their transformation into an insight-led business, specifically the journey they've been on with data and how they've been enriching data, particularly in this cookieless world, and how it's being used to drive digital audience understanding and drive the customer lifetime value strategy. And then how it's being used to drive NPD and to personalize the experience. And I just wanted to say, I know we've got a bunch of people here today across lots of different industries, and Life Extension Europe are a real disruptor in the supplements market, but their journey to enriching data and using it in this way is a really relevant kind of story for all of us, I think, regardless of the industry that we work in. So before we start, just a couple of things of housekeeping. So we will be recording the webinar today and sending out to everybody later, and also for people who've registered who haven't been able to attend. And we really want to hear from you. So both questions today, put them in to the question thing at the bottom of Zoom. And but also if you think about questions afterwards, please do feel free to get in touch with us. So joining me today are Heidi Teschemacher, who's the Chief Commercial Officer and Ecommerce Marketing Director at Life Extension Europe, and Brad Christian, the Chief Customer Officer at Conversity. Hi Heidi, thanks for joining us today.
Hi Hannah, thanks for having me.
It'd be great if you could just give us a little introduction.
Yeah, I started about 4 years ago in Life Extension Europe. I actually came in as a marketing director just to grow, awareness and market shares. But when I come in later, I'll talk a little bit about the journey. So a lot of things happened and changed. But I'm actually a brand girl to start with that moved into the data world.
Great, thank you. And Brad, would you introduce yourself too, please?
Certainly. So Brad Christian here, Chief Customer Officer at Conversity. Been in and around retail for the last 25 years, and I'm joining you from Atlanta, Georgia. And welcome. Good to have you with us.
And
just by way of a brief introduction to me, like Heidi, I'm also a brand person. So started out working in Unilever, working across a bunch of brands there. But actually, like Brad, I've also got the retail background, having worked in John Lewis for 11 years before joining Conversity. So Heidi, first of all, could you just tell us a little bit about Life Extension Europe?
Oh, yes. How much time do I have? Anyway, it's actually a family-owned company that is more than 25 years old. And when they started to have this one amazing brand, Life Extension, where they had like preferred territory of Europe. It's over 500 science-based, and why we say science-based is because we have a lot of content and researchers from actually NGO that we feed into. And we focus on the vitamins, minerals, and supplements as such, distributing over 30 countries. What we've done and what has happened is that there's been a generation shift with a very, very visionary CEO, and he just want to change the number of the 30 countries to a lot of more countries. And we've actually also grown our brand. So right now, yeah, it's just growing and growing and growing, not only in terms of revenue, but amount of brands that we cover and hopefully also amount of countries in the future.
And a very multicultural office there.
Very multicultural, yeah. We have a very strong customer care team spread around 4 to 6 different locations. We have a head of science in Germany. Even here in my team, we have one India, Slovakia, so Sweden, Norway. So yeah, we just love the different cultures.
Good spread of different cultures there. So can you tell us a little bit about the background to where you were before you started on this journey?
Yeah, as I mentioned, when I came in about 4 years ago, the plan was to grow in terms of market shares and brand awareness. But then when we kind of looked into it, what we saw was that we were very focused on of the products and very inside out. We didn't really know our customers, and the design that we created on our web store was like, as you can see in the picture, there was design and this is what we felt, and the users were going somewhere else. But we really didn't know exactly where they were going. We could just see something like an email and a purchase history. So it was just like a blank spot. So that was one of the first questions we had. Who are we talking to, right?
Mm-hmm. And then I understand you went on quite a big e-commerce journey.
Yes. So we wanted actually back in 2017 to say, okay, we want to change our whole mindset to a growth mentality in the company. We also wanted to go the content way instead of only talking about products and features. We really wanted to change it. But then we had to stop and say, but who are we talking to? And, in order for us to actually come in and become brand relevant, we need to map exactly that area of data, meaning customer insights. So we changed the journey slightly and said, let's clean up what we have, let's grow and become data driven. So it's actually what we've done. We've done a major data transformation the last 2 years. So yeah, no, you can say that 2025 is not only about becoming one of the best platforms for healthy living. Now we can actually say that we're an value-added distributor, not only having amazing brands, but now we know the customers. So no matter what brand within self-care we can actually place on our platform and launch. That's been the journey.
Yeah, it's such a relevant area. Yeah. Brad, can you tell us a little bit more about Conversity?
Yeah, I would be happy to. I think before I tell you who or what we are, I think I'd start with why we are. And there's an issue that we've seen evolving over time. And, the global pandemic has certainly accelerated this, but there's an absolute disconnect between retailers and brands and the consumers that they're courting. We're seeing this online, we're seeing it in store, and it's real. And, when you think about in store, these brands are feeling margin pressures to reduce the staff inside of a store, maybe bring in less experienced, less expensive staff into the stores, and perhaps even reducing the investment they're making in training. All of that sort of compounds to create a less than stellar in-store experience. And then online, as everybody knows, is making strides, but still hasn't quite figured out how to be the in-store experience that we're accustomed to and the interaction that we get. So Conversity exists to bridge that gap, to address that. And so we're a global provider of technology solutions, software as a service, to cultivate what we refer to as real-time relevance for our clients' customers, and ultimately create a confidence to buy. The solution that is gaining the most traction right now for us is something, and Hannah, you talked about it, intelligent guided selling, intelligent guided search, IGS, some of us call it. And it's an e-commerce application that, again, provides that real-time relevance. We are really excited about the validation that we're getting because it is being recognized by other entities. Late last year, we won an award for Online Innovation of the Year for a deployment that we conducted for a British telco called the Phone Co-op. And then around the same time, we won another award for Best Use of Personalization for a little toy manufacturer that you might have heard of called Lego. And so that validation is really encouraging to us. We know we're onto something, and we really couldn't be more excited to have Life Extension Europe with us. And by extension, no pun intended, Heidi, because she's absolutely a rock star when it comes to this concept of using this capability to extract consumer insight.
Let's talk about that later.
So Brad, I know when you and I first talk to people about our intelligent guided selling e-commerce solution, there is sometimes a bit of a degree of confusion about what it actually is. Can you just tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, I think in its simplest form, guided selling is the idea of deploying a journey, a customer journey on a brand's website. And it consists of a series of dynamic questions. And those questions are designed to help understand the customer, the motivations, the mindset, the goals, their objectives, maybe even their budget. And while that's important for a brand to understand that about a customer, equally important is the fact that the consumer who's going on that journey feels heard, feels valued, and so that connection starts to build. Hannah, as you know, we've got a team of consumer psychology experts who they understand the why behind the buy or why we buy, and that expertise shows up in the journey design that we put together. Now, in full transparency, the journey is designed to facilitate a purchase, and that's achieved by sophisticated recommendation logic that matches up to what does the consumer say about themselves and what they're looking for and who they are, and what are the attributes within our product range that maybe map best to that. And so the journey ends with a recommendation so that you can immediately add that item or those items into your cart, make the purchase, and drive that online conversion rate. And what you're seeing on the screen here is an example of one of the journeys that we've deployed. This is the Lego gift finder, and this tool is deployed across multiple retailers globally.
Yeah, and is really highly used, actually, that one. Yeah. So when brands or retailers choose to launch guided selling, what do you think they're looking for, Brad?
Well, what we are seeing is there's four drivers, if you will. And the first and the foremost, and we've talked about, is this idea of building a more human, more personal connection with the consumer. As we know, websites tend to be rows and rows of pictures and specs and prices and very little guidance and navigation other than maybe a fancy filter system to help consumers really figure out what they need. So the primary driver or key reason for engaging in a solution like this is to build that human connection and to replicate that in-store experience. I think the second thing is driving sales performance. And what we mean by that is the tool is designed to elicit the ideal recommendation. So online conversion is always higher. But because the solution has taken the time and the brand has taken the time to get to know that customer, a better connection exists, so a more authentic understanding of them. And so other cross-sell and upsell recommendations can be made that aren't, hey, other people also bought. Well, I don't care about other people, I care about me. And that's the difference here. And so the average transaction value goes up as well. So those two in parallel are what drives sales performance. And then the third category of driver or interest is this idea of if you've got a product group or a category that's maybe complicated or requires a degree of consideration before you kind of finally pull the trigger. Teaching your consumers how to buy your product or what to think through before they add to cart, really an important driver. And I think the last one here, number 4, and the one that I know Heidi's going to talk a little bit about, is this idea of gaining strategic insight into who your customers are. It's table stakes. If you don't know who your customers are and why they're buying from you or why they're not buying from you, you're going to fall behind. You're going to be one of the losers in the winners and losers category. So this is an increasingly important strategic go-to-market component for most brands. And so I would say those are the 4 key drivers.
And certainly something that's becoming even more important these days. So why was our intelligent guided selling tool the best match for Life Extension Europe, Brad?
Well, I wouldn't put words in Heidi's mouth. She's probably she's gonna say it better than I would. But I do think it's this notion. And as she talked about her journey, they didn't start out with this consumer-led approach. It was, hey, we've got these great products and they have these features and they have these benefits. And if that lines up with your interests, fantastic, you should buy some. But now their focus is aspirationally, well, who are my consumers? What are their goals? And that's the way we want to market. That's the way we want to message. And so it's tools like guided selling that allow them to get that kind of insight.
So Heidi, I'll come back to you and ask you about, your view on all of this. So just casting your mind back, what were your original objectives for intelligent guided selling? What problem was it trying to solve?
It was actually most of what Brad just mentioned in terms of the parameters, but we had like two tracks we wanted to focus on. One of them was, of course, to understand who is it exactly that we are talking to? How can we move away from product features to brand relevance? That was the core thing for us to try and investigate. And then also to make sure that we can move towards the trend of personalization more. We work a lot with like a supplement pyramid. I'll talk about it maybe a little bit later, but in that sense, it's like the core, what health goals do you have? So to find that, it was key to find a tool that could map it, not only based on something we predefined, you say yes here and then you go here, but it's actually machine learning and it creates an algorithm after a while. So yeah, it's intelligent instead of what we think, because then we would just be where we started, right? And the second track was actually data points, to create data points, because as I said, I come from an FMCG world, just like you. I've been 20 years in retail, both as a brand owner, but also on like the retail level, brick and mortar. And when I look at it as such, going a hardcore e-commerce business, there were some gaps in terms of collecting that data also. But it should be the easiest one when you're online. So by plugging in Conversity's tool, it actually helped us create those data points. So we, in the future, know our customers, but actually also know if another brand or another industry comes in and we're interested in growing our business to other territories, we know how to navigate.
Yeah.
And it's a nice value for the company as well, as consumers.
And I know you've been on a massive, big transformative journey. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. First, when we started the journey, we were looking very much into let's make sure we have a purpose. One of the purpose is, of course, science of health, right? It's making sure that we could prolong life, not meaning the age of 120, but it means that we might be able to prevent people to have a heart attack at 65 because of obesity or something like that. So for us, it was more trying to understand where can we help people the most in terms of the products we have. But then we said, if we know a little bit more about them, let's, instead of guiding them with our purpose, move into this transformative approach, meaning who can we help people become? So we actually give them a tool of self-care. And that's why I'm saying in 2025, our, of course, big aim is to have a platform where people can go to figure out exactly how can I live healthier or longer, or prevent or live with a condition I have. I really don't care in that sense, as long as we can help people transform to a better me, healthier me.
Quite a very inspiring purpose that you have. So just coming back to the data side of your transformation, how did you use the data as part of that?
We actually decided that instead of doing like the old school segmentation, of women X above from Germany and stuff like that, I already started with my personas and everything, and then I luckily started to talk to some really, really clever people. So Brad, it's not only me, it's actually because I've been schooled really well in this my own personal transformation. So what we said is that when we start this journey, trying to gather data, let's make sure that it's intellectual in the sense of it's data generated. So it's digital audiences that we look at. Let's move away from feelings and emotions in that sense. So we actually put everything together in a data lake in BigQuery, where we mapped whatever data feed we had at that point. And then we started to match. And we did the matching, we started to have what we call clusters. So it kind of defines based on frequency and time span and value and stuff like that. So that's how everything started.
And that's the feeding in then, I understand, to your customer lifetime value strategy.
Yeah, exactly. So you can say on that area, we can actually very much see, on cluster 0, that is newcomers, first time buyers. How fast do they move into another cluster? What is the AOV? Where do we see everybody's moving? And it's basically tactical plans to increase the higher CLTV, right? So it's about increasing either on getting them to buy more or buy more frequent or stuff. So we have tactical plans we work with like that. But to create another dimension, we needed this extra data, which is preferences, their motivation, if they have an interest or health goal or anything like that. So when I look at a cluster, for example, cluster 5, then I can say, okay, fine, this person has an average spend. They're here in average frequency. It can be a woman in France, which is 42, has the same behavior as such. It's like a tribe as a guy from Finland that is 25. So I really don't care that much with countries anymore. I look at behaviors that is data driven. But in order we can really, really target them and become people-based. So making sure that my marketing strategy together with the team is focused on these people-based behavior. Then we add the other dimension of data points. So that is where, for example, your tool comes in, because then we can start feeding on those areas and then come up with recommendation and personalizations, and just kind of not only have one layer, but continue to increase the layers. So we have brand preference, shopping experience, first data, first party data and stuff like that. So as I said, oh my God, I wished I moved to this direction so many years ago. Yeah.
Quite an amazing transformation that you're making with the data. So just coming back to the actual intelligent guided selling tool that we've developed for you.
Yeah.
I wondered if you could just talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of you out there might be thinking where to start, or you're already in a data transformation. But for us, it was kind of, we had an idea of which products were linked to which behaviors. But in order to just stay within the product features, we wanted to work with you to move towards the machine learning, right? So we actually sat down and start matching this. And then we said, what is it exactly that we need? So we did this huge pile of questions. Remember that, Hannah? So we had like everything we could think of, and then we tested it. And we said, there's of course, the personal profile. And there's very much based on, are you a beginner within the jungle of supplements, or where are you in this area? And then there's the whole lifestyle. So if you're a vegetarian, for example, where would you, would you be B vitamins or something like that? And then of course, also you have the health vitamins, right? So that was basically where we started the whole quiz, what we call supplement quiz. So just trying to map out so people can do the different choices. We just tried to make sure that it had value, it had transparency, and it had choices. And then it ends up with top recommendations. It's not going to end up with this product for you because we're still within some healthcare areas. So we need to make sure that we have a scale. We narrow down the choices for them, and we say there's a fundamental health they need to focus on. So no matter what health goal you might have, you need to make sure your base is correct. That is really essential. And then of course, if you want to gain more energy, funny enough, despite COVID, it's not immunity. Immunity is much lower. It's actually energy that is really high. But energy can be a lot of things. It can be because you're tired, or because you're a little bit stressed, so you don't sleep as much. So it can be another symptom, but it can also be some other things in your body that actually creates a need for supplements or boosting. As I said, sports might be something. When you start again, you might need a little kick of energy the first couple of hours. So we can't really go in that close yet. But there we recommend together with your tool, and then we open up also for them to be able to actually call us in case with our health advisors. But at least we've narrowed down the choices and made it clear for them.
Yeah, and having the sort of, baseline, this is what you should really be having, and adding on the extra things as well.
Exactly.
So could you just talk us through some of the results that you've been seeing, Heidi?
Yeah. What we've seen is the increase in number of sessions since we started is luckily going up. It would have been maybe not this webinar otherwise, but anyway, what we've seen is that when we started, as I mentioned, we had to just make sure we had as many questions as possible. And then together with you, we actually went through where's people bouncing, where's people like not really wanting to click, or where can we see it's irrelevant for us? We're not really using that as a data point or a recommendation part in the algorithm. So it's about optimizing continuously based on data as well and learnings that we get in. So I think that's basically the reasons we've seen in terms of the increase in sessions. It's also reduced our cost of acquisition. And also what we see, people who has used the test and the quiz, I mean, it's actually, there's 69% increase in customer engagement. We also see the conversion is twice as high. And another thing is that the AOV is actually also higher. And that is basically because, as you also mentioned in one of your points, Brad, is upsell. We can see exactly where they view, what they put in the basket, and what they actually purchase on. And we can actually see that even though they look at, let's say, basic magnesium product, a lot of them actually upsell to a more premium version. Yeah.
Some great results there. So just in terms of then this whole area of customer focused data analysis, where are you going to next?
Yeah. As you can see, there's a lot of opportunities. Well, to be honest, what we're looking at this point is, right now we're testing just in English and German, but we would like, of course, to do other languages. Then also we really, really want to look into some other features, which is more consumer based, meaning, when, for example, now let's stay in the sport universe, right? When people are saying, oh yeah, I bike, what do I need to take? Right? So it's very much based on, are you a guy or, girl? Are you a man that is, physically been training for a lot of years and you're almost on an athlete level? Are you doing Tabata training with a lot of really short distances, so you need a lot of recovery help? Or are you long distance? So it's very much based on what type of sports that you do. So when we look at it in general, we say there's so many different areas people is actually interested in terms of, let's say, sports, energy, anything like that. And we can see in the reports we get what kind of words and interest areas people is buzzing in on the most. And then what we've done is that we actually making sure that when we launch something in the future, we launch it as a MVP. So it's like a minimal viable product, meaning we go in loops to make sure that we constantly test before we nail the main message. And we also go into the occasion-based area or communication, meaning, for example, sports again, it's very much, where are you? Are you before training, during training, after training? Are you on the go? On what level? Is it on the fundamental part, or is it because you want to optimize, because you want to burn fat or something like that? So in that sense, suddenly by actually, as I said, having data in different dimensions, we're actually able to match much more in terms of how we communicate, how we launch, and how we map out things. So that we're working on right now to make sure that it's not one side you have to navigate in, but a multiple layer on different things. Yeah. We're launching a platform next month.
So that feeds into the customer data platform.
Yeah. So all the platform, the one right now we're moving into another platform that's going to be more content led. And then all data points is linked into what we call a customer data platform. So when we looked at this back in the days, it was more like, as I said, we went from what the fuck, we had no idea what was going on. We didn't know the data points or anything. Now it's in a customer data platform where we feed in all the data points. And this is where we run our emails, our automation flows. It's also where we can do web layers and our recommendations on site and stuff like that. So everything is feeded into one, data stream. And then we work with dynamic profiles, and we look at the clusters, and we can see when they move into different clusters. So we need to navigate. So yeah, and we hooked up with Exponia, which is very also innovative and intuitive, because they constantly change and develop, just like us. So we can't really be put in a box at this point because we don't really know where we end in a short while.
Such a powerful way to have all of the data in one place. So just in terms of then thinking forwards, where is next? What further opportunities are you looking at, Heidi?
Yeah. Well, one of them that I think is really, really interesting is, of course, the whole personalization in terms of subscriptions and loyalties and stuff like that. So that's close to home. We're already working on that. We're just using the data feed to optimize it. But for example, the whole B2B, B2C, and then C2C is extremely interesting. We have like 73% of the revenue on consumers. But what we can see is actually our partner B2B is growing. So if it can go to an enhanced version of B2C, I think that is where we can actually grow really strong and use some of the same data knowledge that we have. So that is interesting. And especially because also why I want to be C2C is because we have a very high retention. So like 40% of our revenue last year were from customers that came in 2016. So we have so many stories also, testimonials that we want to bring alive. Yeah, so I don't know where I want to go, but yeah, and then in this world, yeah, do the cookie go with milk only, or where are we at this point? Everybody's talking about cookieless and first party data and stuff like that. So yeah, at this point, I think we're just going to stay on track with generating the data points on first level.
Yeah, interesting areas for innovation. And just thinking about innovation for Conversity, Brad, where do you see intelligent guidance selling evolve? How do you see it evolving over the coming months and years to meet the increasingly high consumer expectations?
Yeah, I think that's the right word is evolving. Technology moves fast. If you aren't innovating the solution, you're becoming irrelevant and falling behind. So Conversity has a quarterly innovation summit that we conduct, and every member of the organization comes together to put forward their ideas, and many of them are really quite good. Can't share any of those with you just now, but I can talk about one that's literally coming to market as we speak, and it's this idea of what we'll call creating the virtual sales experience. So think about taking one of our journeys and you're progressing through the questions, you're providing the insight that the solution needs, but you get to the end, you get recommendation, and you look at that recommendation and you're like, I still don't know if this one, or that one are the right one for me. God, I wish I could just talk to somebody and just sort of clarify this so I could make that transaction. Well, voila, there's a talk to a live sales agent button right there in the recommendation screen. You click it, you're immediately connected with a live human being who's maybe sitting in a contact center, maybe they're sitting in the corporate office, or maybe they're sitting in a retail store and they're there to walk you through the store and go get items. And one particular company that we're talking to right now, not only is it to route to a retail store, it's routing to a dark store. So the store actually isn't for inbound traffic, it's to just field those inbound calls, quote unquote calls, from the website so that that person can talk to you one-on-one, walk around the dark store, picking up products or talking you through decisions. They can share digital content in the chat channel with you so that you can go, I'm good now. Click, add to cart, and let's go. And we think this is a really powerful face-to-face consumer connection kind of mechanism that's for the companies that adopt this early, it's going to be very disruptive in our opinion.
Mm. And just thinking about your brand, Heidi, with it being very sort of, kind of human and advisor led, how do you think this innovation fits with your brand?
I very much, coming from brick and mortar, I completely agree. That is where you can strengthen the whole e-commerce business. I can see at least now that's also how we differentiate in terms of our customer care team and health advisors that we have on multilingual. We have like more than 5 languages we cover. So I completely agree that we can have like a live button in the case of that situation, it would be perfect. But also if we want to expand to even more countries, then time zones might be an issue. So we need to look at something else. And in that case, we've actually been testing an AI avatar together with somebody called Synthesia. And for us, it was important to test both in terms of can we use it to actually nudge people on site. So instead of just doing graphics and UX, is there any way where we can have this person actually talk? And actually there was one Italian who said, she's crazy, this woman, so they very much thought she was real. But if we can add that together, similar, as you said, Brad, with a live talking person, but also having it as an avatar that actually understands if you click here and then the algorithm actually works together, it would also help people to navigate. So it's not only clicking, but it become engaging and supportive instead. Yeah, so I very much believe in that one, and it's definitely an area we want to go into.
Yeah, I can see how it fits really well with your brand and many others too. So Brad, how do you see these innovations helping brands and retailers?
Well, it's interesting. These are innovations, but just the intelligent guided selling solution in of itself is a relatively new technology that companies are trying to figure out. And it's interesting. I think we wind up talking to 2 camps of people. The first group are people that say, this is really interesting. I'd like to learn more about it. And, their motivations tend to be, I need to understand what my competition might be doing. I need to make sure that when my boss rings me up tomorrow morning that they don't catch me blindsided, not being aware of what something like guided selling or the new approach to personalization is, but they may or may not move forward with it. But then there's another group of people that we talk to and they are, I get it. This resonates with me. We have to build a better personalization engine. More and more transactions are being done online. And if we aren't leading the charge on this, we're going to get left behind. And so I've got our basketball player here. I think these people that I'm describing, the latter group, they're reaching for more, much more. They're trying to figure out, how do I deliver a better customer experience? How do I get to be the buzz of the industry where everyone's talking about me? And I think the analogy here with this basketball player is, there are people that are just happy to get to the tournament and they lose their first game and like, yeah, but we got to the tournament. And I think there's another group of people that are like, no, I'm not only getting to the tournament, I'm getting to the Final Four and I want to win this thing. And it's been really interesting to watch the 2 camps of people fall out. And we're obviously more excited in talking to the folks who want to dominate the game.
That's very true. So Heidi, I think you've done a great job of sort of telling us about the journey that you've been on and how you've been doing using the data that we collect through the IGS. Are there any final thoughts you had around how it's helped you reach the aims that you set out for it?
Well, I can exactly recognize what you just mentioned, Brad, in the sense of, where do you start, right? Where do you start the journey? How do you prioritize? How do you get the right questions? And how do you even work with the data? Because one thing is getting the data. Another thing is using it, right? We've had to change our completely way of working, even the team as well, to some extent, in terms of profiles of how we wanted to work and how we wanted to optimize this people-based approach. So it's been very important to actually work with people that is able to guide and coach not only the start of the journey, but throughout the journey, and making sure that when we do a transformation or we do this, it's never ending. When you start on data, it's like you want to go all the time. So you keep optimizing. So when people say we do like a data transformation, but you need to evolve. So there's going to be a transformation 2 and 3 and 4. So that was my own experience throughout this whole journey, but also together with you, is that to really make sure that you're flexible, not only on the tool, but on your entire organization and the team that you work with.
It's great. It's been great working with you, Heidi, over the last year or so. So that brings us to a close, really. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Heidi. That was a really interesting perspective on how guided selling is being used to drive value for life extension Europe. And I think more broadly in the industry, the opportunities that are there too. And thank you to our audience as well for being with us today. I'm conscious of time, so I'm not sure we're going to get to all of our questions, but let's just see what we've got. We've got time for a couple of questions. Brad, I've got one here for you. Does it matter how many products you have to use this technology?
No, I think that's the interesting thing. Heidi talked at the top of the call that there's 500 plus items, and absolutely winnowing through such a vast array of SKUs is obvious. But we've got customers who have 5 broadband options or a handful of skincare products. And so it can be a wide range and a small range. It's building the connection with the consumer that really matters.
Yeah, and I can add, as I just mentioned, it's also the way we work, right? So it doesn't really matter up the scale, because we can also stream it down and say we only have 20 within a certain category we want to work with. But it's going to be the same way of working and bringing in the data.
And this is probably going to be our last question now. Brad, what does the typical deployment look like?
So the first part of the process is the consultation with you, obviously, and your team, and the design of the journey. And then we move into the sophistication of the recommendation logic and how that maps to the various attributes. And so from that, here's the product, here's the signed agreement, to go live, it can be as quick as a 4-week cycle.
Great. I think we are pretty much out of time. So I just wanted to say again, thank you very much, Heidi, for your time today, and Brad for joining us as well. I hope all you listeners enjoyed our conversation and learnt something or found something out that you didn't know before, or that you did know and now you know more about. I'm sure Brad and Heidi will be very happy to hear from anyone who's here today that has any further questions. So their addresses are there on the screen. Feel free to reach out to them directly. As I said at the beginning, we have recorded this session, so we'll be sending that out to you on email, along with any answers to questions that we didn't quite get to today. So that's all from us. Thank you very much.